the Quinn Marr Show.
This show is brought to you by Bing Pot Trivia. How many times have you been to a trivia night where it just felt like somebody reading questions? Well, Bing Pot Trivia prides themselves on bringing high-energy, dynamic hosts to every event. The show leans heavily on visual elements. Their questions are designed to make you laugh or roll your eyes, while also challenging your knowledge on pop culture, high school science, culinary arts, and everything in between. Their typical show runs 5 rounds, including a photo round, general knowledge on pop culture, riffs on different game shows, absurd 50-50 questions, and a super sweet music round. Check out bingpottrivia.com today to book your trivia night. Again, that is at bingpottrivia.com. Tell my boy Danny that your friend Quinn sent you. All right, let's get on with the show. My next guest is making his return to my show. He's Edwin Venturi. He boxed with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the boy on the raft, but I know him as my friend Danny. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the Quinn Marr Show, Danny Maggs. Danny, what's going on, brother?
Buddy, I'm having a great day. And I listen, Quinn, I love you. The last intro you did, and I only say this because I listened back to the last thing from last year. Yeah, the intro that you gave me last year was like top tier.
Dude, it was a good one.
A solid 6.2 out of 10.
I'll take a 6, dude. That's more than 50%. I never got that in school, so I'll take that, dude. I remember writing that intro, and I remember your reaction, like seeing your reaction on the video. I was like, I fucking nailed this one.
It was a big deal.
It was the first episode.
Do you swear now on this show?
I swear before.
Oh, well then.
Yeah,
that's true.
I probably just didn't swear as much.
Yeah,
I just swear so much in like my normal life that it's like second nature to just.
You're supposed to elevate yourself for the pod.
That's true.
You're supposed to, give yourself a bigger version of yourself.
That's true. Yeah,
a little more polished,
being more fired up than I normally am. But dude, what's up, man? I want to know what's up with you. How you been? We last did this probably just about a year ago. I think it was maybe last August. So
yeah, that sounds right.
Some things have changed with you, so I do want to get into that. I know we would have talked about this last year, so I want to go back a little bit. So you quit acting. How many years ago did you quit acting?
I didn't quit.
Took a break?
Acting. I took a break. I took a 10-year hiatus, which was a choice. Wasn't my choice. If it were up to me, I would have been in more things. No, I took a break from auditioning when I went back to school, and minus like a little 8-month window where I got back to it mid-pandemic. Poor timing. I was never enamored with it. I felt like I had to do other things, and I didn't know if it was the thing that I was supposed to be doing. So that's why I took a break.
Was it always going to be a break and not permanent?
At the time, so this is like 2016 when I went back to broadcasting school, or went back to school for radio, whatever. What I was telling myself at the time was, I'm shelving it. I'm not making any finite statements. I'm not saying it's happening or it's not happening again. Like I wasn't making a big commitment one way or the other. I said I'm shelving it.
Yeah.
And so that little hiccup in the pandemic, that was me taking it off the shelf. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I had to put it back on the shelf because my Toronto agent was like, well, we're not going to keep you on if you are moving to Vancouver. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. And, it wasn't, I didn't feel like I had to keep doing it at the time. But I did recently get back into it. I re-signed over the summer with an agency, LA Jones Talent here in Vancouver. Nice. 2 wonderful sisters, Pam and Annalisa. They're great. And we've kicked back into it.
Nice. So what's the beginning process been like getting back into it? Has it already been like numerous auditions? Are you planning on do you have any more lined up? Like what's going on?
It's not as sexy as you want it to be. It's not like I made this triumphant return and now I'm getting.
You're like, yes, thank God he's back.
You can only wish.
Right.
That's not how it goes. So there is a little bit of a story here if you want it. I want to kind of come clean a little bit. Okay. So I went back last night ahead of this and I rewatched our interview from last year and was just like, where was I at? You got me at a really weird time last year for me. I had spent most of last year, 2023, trying to get out of entertainment and all of it and looking for a desk job, and I didn't care what.
What?
So, yeah, I spent like most of 2023 trying to find a job. It could have been some kind of sales gig, it could have been whatever, but all I wanted was like a certain salary threshold because I live in Vancouver and it's expensive. And I was like contemplating moving to the States if I found a gig. Like in Florida, I would have gone to Florida. I would have gone wherever. Like
Right.
I did not care. I just needed stability.
Yeah.
And probably 2 to 4 weeks before I sat down with you last year, I had realized that wasn't working. And it's crazy because we talked about it last year. Actually, if you look at like my LinkedIn or wherever, like I have a crazy different. My
Yeah.
resume makes no goddamn sense.
Right.
And I've done everything from obviously the acting thing to radio to restaurants to my stint in data analysis and analytics.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it looked like you
like
grabbed a bunch of random stuff and threw it on a piece of paper.
and as I found out, you can't explain that to people in a job application.
In a regular 9 to 5, you cannot explain.
Well, like the process of getting the 9 to 5, right? So I've said for years and years and years and anything, the process for getting a job and the skills required to get a job is completely different from the skills required to get that or to do that job.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working with a career coach. I was banging my head against a wall, being like, listen, I don't know what I'm qualified for. Read this and tell me what I'm qualified for. And apparently the world doesn't work that way. And nobody was interested in helping me the way that I thought I needed to be helped, which is fine. Because about 2 weeks before you and I sat down, I made the decision that, listen, BingPot was the only thing that was growing while I was on this search.
Mm-hmm.
So take what the world is giving you and just go do more of that. So I quit the job search and put all my energy back into BingPot. And in addition to doing that, about October of last year, I started getting into stand-up comedy, to classes, and really wanted to climb that hill. In February, I had a showcase as part of the classes that I was taking, and I worked for about 5 weeks to craft this 7-minute set, and I worked my ass off to do it. And I was in front of different audiences. I was doing weekend guest spots that I lucked into, and I polished it. I did the showcase, and afterwards, this woman hands me her card, and she says, "Listen, I'm a talent agent. Yeah, I think you're great. I'd love to talk to you." And I started laughing because I'm like, you don't know me and you don't know what I've gone through already with this industry. And
You're a newbie.
well, yeah, she just saw a guy on stage and thought it was funny. I was like, listen, we have a lot to talk about. I'll call you. And I did. And then we went down the path, and I was really hesitant to whether or not I wanted to do it. Because I think despite making the decision to double down on BingPot, I wasn't fully confident in that decision until probably 4 months ago.
Shit.
Buddy, things take time, and there's a lot of I'm a very indecisive person.
It sounds like it. I mean, looking at your resume, yeah, you can tell. Damn. Okay.
So,
okay, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
well, I mean, so I signed with them, and your whole question that kicked this off was, have you had a ton of auditions? And the short answer is no, because getting in the room is harder than it's ever been.
True.
Not just for me, but for anybody. There is no room anymore. Everything's done virtually. It's COVID.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it more so COVID, or is it also like there's no jobs right now?
There's jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's jobs, but the way that the industry is, I'm still relearning exactly how this industry works, but it's so fast. Casting directors, right? So, if you're an actor breaking in, or even if you've been around for a while, the casting director is your gatekeeper. So the casting director has to make the choice to even bring you into the room for an audition. And let's say they're bringing in 8 actors for a role. We're not even talking about big roles. We're not talking about juicy roles. We're talking about like either little things or what have you. If they're bringing in 8 actors, you already got to be in their good books to get in.
Jesus.
And I've had 3 auditions since I signed. That's it.
And when did you sign?
May, June, maybe June. June sounds right.
I mean, I don't know how it works, but like the way you're saying it makes it sound like that's not a lot.
Doesn't feel like a lot.
Right.
But and my agents have been submitting me, right? Like that's how it goes. They'll throw my name out there as often as they can, but the casting director has to be like, yeah, I'll see this guy. And I'm just a guy on a list of a bunch of guys that the casting director has said, yeah, I'll bring that guy in at some point. So you basically just got to wait.
Do you think the strike last year put like a not a hold, but like kind of held things back a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, well, nobody was working.
Right. So, but now all the things that either they were doing then or they're about to start are like there was kind of a hold up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So things are picking up. I mean, summer, I also don't know how summer typically works. Like for casting, it's been a long time for me.
True.
I mean, if shows are coming back in September, then maybe August was the month. I don't really know. And here's the beauty of it at this point. The reason I stopped when I stopped to go back to school was I felt like I was spinning my wheels and I wasn't doing anything. Right? Like I was waiting tables, doing the starving artist thing, waiting for auditions to come my way, and I was missing things. I was missing skills, and my work ethic hadn't developed the way that it needed to. So for me, it was like, I need to put this on the shelf so I can figure out what my thing is. You know, whether it was going to be radio or as I started building Bing Pod again, like that was that became my thing. So now I don't need acting to be my everything, because I'm at a place with Bing Pot where we're past where we were pre-pandemic, finally. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I've got that. That's working for me. Acting now is a natural extension of what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I don't need to sit here and rip my hair out that I'm trying to be an actor and I'm not getting auditions. It's like I'm building a trivia company and I'm doing these shows and I'm growing that and doing cooler events with it. So the acting thing will come if it comes, and I'm in it. And when I get an audition, I work my ass off for that audition because that's what I signed up for. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I don't need it.
To me, it sounds like 10 plus years ago, it was Danny Maggs, the actor. And that's not you now. This is the business owner, the stand-up comedian, and the actor.
Yeah, this is Danny Maggs, the entertainer. Right?
Oh, okay, there we go. I like that.
This is, it was Daniel Magder, the actor.
Yep.
Right, who kind of went through a bunch of transformation, and now I'm just Danny Maggs, the entertainer. And but honestly, dude, I'm just a guy.
I like that. Well, dude, it's so weird because it would have been like around like Halloween. No, Christmas. My fiance and I, who still love like Family Channel, Disney Channel, YTV, all that shit, we'll go back and rewatch like episodes, like how Christmas themes episodes of the shows we watch.
Yeah.
And every Christmas, we always go back to the Life with Derek one of when everyone got snowed in and stuff. And it's so weird because last Christmas when we did it, I watched it. It was after me talking to you and like we talk every so often. I'm like, this is weird now watching this. I talk to this guy like semi regularly, so it's like weird that like.
Yeah,
you really are just a person at the end of the day. Like, crazy, obviously, like, watching you as a kid, I'm like, oh my god, like that's Edwin. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's probably hard for you. I mean, I'm sure you hear that all the time, but it's probably hard for you to really grasp that. Not being you, not being like on the outside like everyone else is.
I had a moment a couple years back when I was on the last show we did. I talked about my love for the Stone Cottage, which, by the way. A year ago, you were like, "Yeah, man, I'm going to check out a Bing Pod trivia show." Have you, Quinn? Have you?
I know.
Yeah.
I just recently got promoted, so I'm a busy motherfucker right now. I know,
buddy.
I know.
What time is it? Is it excuse o'clock? It sounds like it's excuse o'clock right now.
It is. Well, you were at one last year in Toronto, weren't you?
I did one in Toronto. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did one at the W Hotel in Yorkville as a kind of a Christmas one-off. But anyway, the It probably took me until like, okay, so what, 2019, I'm 27, 28 years old. It probably took me to that point in my life to understand that when people were like, yo, Edwin, like that was admiration, like
more than disrespect. Yeah.
Like yeah, exactly. It always used to bother me a ton because I felt like I was just being like labeled. What I felt like it was people just looking at me and being like, we see the two-dimensional TV character and that's all you are to us. And that's
Right.
it.
Right.
And that always bothered me. Always, always, always. At a certain point, I was like, people do that because I had a profound impact on them. And then, like,
I'm 28 now and I'm talking to you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I watched Live with Eric how many years ago?
But that's crazy to me that you would freak out about talking to me because who am I?
That
You know what I mean?
I know
Like,
what you mean, but like, yeah, I don't think you will never be able to think about it the way I do and other people do. I don't think.
now, I've always fanboyed over like musicians.
Right.
I could never understand people freaking out about actors because I was one, and I'm like, we're just people. What?
Fair.
But musicians were always the people that I geeked out about because I can't play anything like that.
Right.
And yeah, like now I'm tame about it, right? But you know, I was I was at a Chromeo concert last night.
I saw that.
I love Chromeo, and you know, Dave, the front man for Chromeo, well, he's like both of them, but Dave is like 46 years old, and I'm like, if I were to just meet him like tomorrow, you know, I'd be a little starstruck.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, dude, you're the man, right?
Yeah.
Like that's so I get it, I do, but I just don't like I don't equate myself to that at all.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe I'm supposed to.
Are you like that with athletes too? Same as musicians. Like if you met Austin Matthews tomorrow, you'd be like, "Holy shit! Like, dude, you're the GOAT." Or do you see him as like same as you've seen actors?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know, because it's like at least with musicians, there's a piece of me that's like, I wish I could.
Right.
You know, but I just like pro athletes. That's so far removed from who I am. It's like that's just a different universe. That'd be like, I have all these questions about what your life is like as a pro athlete. But no, I don't think there would be that same level of reverence.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it. Huh. Okay.
I mean, I will say, hold up. I will say, like years and years ago, well, again, 5 years ago, when I put together that Rah 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 Sandine song, do you know about this?
No.
Did we ever talk about this? Okay,
No.
so I, like the diehard Leaf fans might remember this from when they were creeping on Twitter a couple years back. Rasmus Sandin, when he was playing for the Leafs, 2021, I put a song out. It was a parody of Rasputin, and it was Rah 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 Sandin. And I like
maybe if I heard it, I would know because I am a big Leafs Twitter guy.
You might if you. I'll link Twitter. You after.
Yes.
Anyway, it was like just a whatever, and I forgot about it, and we just kind of let it go. Like it was when I was doing the fan cast again with Paul, and it was just kind of a thing. So a year and a half later, like the next season, it gets picked up on Leafs Twitter and starts making rounds, and Bar Down or whatever was asking about it. And so like they interviewed a couple Leafs and were like, have you heard the song? And like that song made its way into the Leafs dressing room.
That's sick.
And I was like, okay. That's like nobody knows it was me that did it.
But the fact that they know what it is.
Exactly.
And they're listening to it.
Okay. Like that hit kind of hard. But like, cool I don't know what that's not reverence for an athlete, right? That's just I did something super cool and my team heard it. Like that's
pretty sick. That is cool. I don't. Did you finish the point about you bugging you about people thinking you're Edwin?
Yeah, like I realized at a certain point.
What was it like one? Was it one like thing that happened, or all?
No,
or
always, just always. Like
okay.
There's, you know, I would tell stories about trying to, you know, like I'd go to Canada's Wonderland when I was a kid, and yeah, like I just because you know I wasn't a celebrity. Like, sorry, let me rephrase that. Hold on, let me rephrase that. I wasn't rich. So I wasn't buying the fast pass to skip the lines. So I'm like waiting for 45 minutes in a lineup for Behemoth, and there's nowhere to go. So I'm a sitting duck where everybody's like looking around and being like, yo, and then, you know, so I got to deal with all that. And listen, like when it was a cute girl that was stopping me, that was totally fine. But
yes,
when
Edwin, I am.
I was like, yeah, hey, that's me. What's no, but when people would be like overly obnoxious about it, and like just so you know, like 15-year-old girls are the worst at everything. Yeah, right. You got it. So like, yeah, this even happened to me like relatively recently. Like I spent my summer bartending, and every so often, I get people sitting at the bar. They're like, "Hold on, are you?" And there's a way to be respectful about it, which is, oh my, wait a minute, were you an actor? Were you on this show? And I'm like, yeah. Hey, how's it going? Right? Versus like, oh my God, you're Edwin. Hi, Edwin. And I'm like, I'm Danny. Right?
Dude,
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, and they're like, well, no, you're not. You're Edwin. And I'm like, dude, really? Like, and that's the stuff that would drive me nuts.
I mean, and that's fair. That would bug anybody.
Yeah, I think so. But and because like I was a hormonal teenager, right? Like that stuff would aggravate me even more.
True.
And it was just like, why are people so stupid and they can't see past the screen? And then, eventually you soften up and you're like, man, people thought it was cool.
Yeah, like I bet you when you're filming the show, there's no chance you thought 15 plus years later you're doing interviews about it.
God, no. No, definitely not.
Yeah. I don't know if I asked this before, but like when you guys were doing Life with Derek, at the same time, I think there were shows like Latest Buzz, and I'm trying to think of another Family Channel show. Was there ever like, not collabs, obviously, but like, were you guys ever interacting with those?
I was in an episode of The Latest Buzz.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I played a British guy.
Oh my God, were you? Yeah, okay. Actually, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
And this is like the kind of idiot I was in high school. Is I showed up on set talking in a British accent, pretending that I was like actually British, and like I think Zoe was like, "What? I have friends that know your sister. No, you're not. Like, what are you talking?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? I'm totally like." It was like, yeah, but I was a high school kid, right? Like, I was just being an idiot.
Weren't you like? I remember you being in a lot of scenes with her. I'm pretty sure in the show.
Yeah, that was the. It was
okay.
We were.
That is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. A lot of big names came from that show. Like maybe not a lot, but like you had Vanessa who went on to Riverdale. Yes. You had Monroe Chambers.
Monroe went on to Degrassi.
So did Justin.
Yeah.
And so did oh my God, everyone went to Degrassi. Wow, I'm Demetrius.
Yes. Well, he did Winging It, right?
He did Winging It and Degrassi.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. It's kind of cool how when you go back and you look at some of the Canadian actors and actresses, like how they're literally in everything with each other.
It's a small world.
It really is, and you don't really realize until you do some research, or I mean, I guess if you're in the acting world, you see it.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely like, I never felt like I was in it, like in the heart of it, like the pulse of it. I was kind of always on the periphery, which I think was by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm talking about, because that was going to Canada's Wonderland every time I went, and I loved Wonderland. So, like that was my life for a while. And then, like, same thing, movie theaters, right? Like you get mobbed. I think there's a point of me that wanted peace and quiet. Like at my core, I grew up, I'm a quiet Jew from Thornhill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to sit on the couch and watch sports.
Right.
Like,
that's fair. No, that's fair. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You weren't asking to be Brad Pitt.
No, I wasn't. And then, when you get older and you decide that, hey, man, like maybe I do want to pursue this as a career. And maybe that is the goal, to be like that big.
Yeah.
Right. That you could just do whatever the hell you want. Once you start wanting it, I was saying this to Alex last night, like Alex Benoit, who was on Degrassi for a hot minute.
I saw you share. I saw your post about her, and I was like, "Oh, what do I recognize her?" Then
yeah. No, she was in town. I went to a concert. We ended up like it's tough for me because I don't have a lot of child actor friends, obviously, right? So to be able to like share the stuff that we went through, that's really unique because I think that's the hardest part about growing up doing this is that, like, as an adult, there are very few people that can empathize with your childhood. I was working on a bit. I've never done this on stage, but I think that one of the hardest parts, and you wonder why like so many child actors fizzle out, is like, who was my role model growing up? Like, who could I look at and be like, oh, that's a child actor that made it and was normal and successful? Like
Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
At the time. She's better now, but
bro. Lindsay Lohan, Macaulay Culkin, like the Coreys. These are not. They didn't turn out normal. So the only one that I could think of that was like a young actor who ended up okay is Will Smith. But there's an obvious difference between me and Will Smith, right? He's tall, so that's the. Thank you.
I like that, dude. You got to use that one.
I haven't had a reason. Well, okay, so I can't because we wanted to talk about like my voyage into stand up today, and one of the first of all, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest thing I've ever done.
I'm like, I mean, people are shocked when I say this. I hate presentations so much. In school,
Okay.
I hated them. I hate doing them now. I'll do this. I was a class clown. I don't shut the
Yep.
fuck up. I hate
Mhm.
presentations. I could never do stand up. That you have to be so brave to do that.
Yeah, the first time. And I got to say, like, once you do it once, it gets infinitely easier.
But in your head, you're not always thinking like, is this joke gonna bomb? Is it gonna be absolute silent?
I've done enough crappy open mics where the audience is just comics and they're very judgmental, and I've said things that I know are funny and you get nothing out of the audience and you're like, really? It's just okay, well, screw you then. But no, you're right. Before I had the balls to go up on an open mic once, it wasn't so much a fear of bombing. It was, I think for me, like an element of control that I didn't have. And it's like,
Fair.
but the control comes from understanding. So open mics. Okay, hold on. Let's back this up.
Yep.
You go to a comedy show, like a real comedy show with professional comics, and you got anywhere from like 50 to 200 people in the audience. Let's say it's that kind of show, right?
Yep.
I know that I'm going on stage to say something to an audience that is there to laugh. So there is a certain amount of understanding of what this scenario is. Okay? When I first started going into the open mic scene, and I'm not just going in as a 22-year-old kid that's there to like screw around and have fun, right? I'm 30 years old, 31 when I do my first open mic, and I'm used to being Danny Game Show with the Bing Pot trivia stuff, and I'm used to having all these controlled elements, right? Open mics aren't necessarily for an audience.
Mm-hmm.
They're for you, the comic, to get on stage and screw around, because like half the time your audience is only comics and they're not here for you, they're there for themselves.
Yeah,
So
because you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, right?
right, but I'm trying to figure out what works for a real audience, and how do I do that at an open mic
That's true.
when you're not a real audience?
That's true.
So that was like the biggest thing that I had to wrestle with in the last year. But on top of that, I've always had a weird time in social situations since I was a teenager because of the elephant in the room, which is the Life with Derek thing.
Yeah.
But now, so like I said, I could be bartending and people freak out when they see me there, right? Or people have no idea who I am. And like just don't know, don't care. Like, come on, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, right?
Life with who? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Y'all want to feel old for a second. Life with Derek season 1 started filming in October of 2004. It's 20 years ago, by the way.
Oh my god.
So yeah, if you feel old at that, how do I feel? So
Jesus.
there's this weird thing where it's like, if I want to do stand-up material talking about my time as an actor, I can't assume anybody knows who I am. And so it's really weird when I try and do it and half the audience knows, or more likely than not, less than half the audience knows.
Right.
So
that's a weird angle that you got to go
right.
from.
So this was I've done 3 rounds of comedy classes, which have been way more helpful than just going to open mics. Yeah. And I'm not a bad writer, but I have to understand what works writing for the stage versus whatever I've done before. Like I've got my education in screenwriting, so stage is different, like comedy is different.
Yeah.
And it's so much more subjective than anything else that I've seen, where some guys can do certain jokes in a certain way, some guys, their deliveries work doing this joke, but if I try and do a joke like them, that's not what my instrument is wired for. Like it's a very cerebral process. So oh damn it, I totally lost my train of thought.
I'm just about like the angle of how you're gonna go to your jokes and
right
in the audience.
So third time now through these classes, I finally had a process where I was like, maybe now I can introduce myself as an actor and tell people that I was a big child actor and I was in a bunch of things. I was in a movie with Bruce Greenwood and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and these things that'll get people's attention first before I was like, oh, also Life with Derek. And then some people might go, oh, I know that show.
That's smart. That's a good way to do it because
but it took a year. It took a year for me to get around that. Because the first set that I did, I was terrified that I was going to go up on stage and a handful of people in the audience were going to be like, yo, that's Edwin from Life with Derek. And like anything else, like heckle me or interrupt mid set to be like, were you on Life with Derek? And I just needed to like prepare for that.
Right.
But then didn't happen and nobody cared.
It's kind of like the rap battle scene in 8 Mile. You're doing it before they could say anything.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know how
that's
like
what I've gotten to now.
Right. And that makes a lot more sense because, I mean, you're just using that material to your advantage.
And you got to be honest on stage is the thing, right? Like the best comedy will come from a place of honesty. So I don't want to go up there and start swinging my dick around like, hey, man, I was Edwin on Life with Derek because, you know, we just did that 5 seconds ago. That's not me. I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
But to some people, I'm not just so what am I on stage? And so this is my unique struggle entering comedy.
Yeah. Was when you were a kid, was that ever a thought, stand up?
When I was 14, there was a random talent show at my high school, and I did stand up, and I was terrible.
Like most 14-year-olds.
Yeah, like I can't remember most of my jokes, but I can tell you there was another guy who did comedy who just like Googled a bunch of jokes on the internet and read them, and he was Chinese and his English was not his first language. And so he was stumbling over words, but it was just the funniest thing.
It just made it funny.
Like he did like your mama jokes where he couldn't, you know what I mean? Where he couldn't even like get some of the words out. And everybody was dying and laughing and not laughing at him, but laughing with him. Like in the moment, it was so genuine and funny. And I did the stuff that I rehearsed and I was terrible and got like no laughs. But I was 14 and fearless, right? So I didn't care.
Of course.
No, I'd never seriously thought about doing comedy until right before the pandemic, where it was my New Year's resolution going into 2020 was to take a stand-up class. And then the pandemic hit right away and kind of derailed that. When I was doing, I went to an open mic right before the pandemic, and the guy, sorry, no, it wasn't an open mic. It was a pro-am show at Absolute Comedy. And it was emceed, or one of the comics was a guy who taught the classes at Absolute. Talked to him after and was asking about the classes. What he said to me is, you know, I can't tell anybody. I can teach you how to write jokes. I can't teach you how to control a room. And that was the most encouraging thing I could have heard, because I'd been running rooms for so long with trivia, 4 years at that point, that I was like confident in my ability to run a room. So it was like, teach me how to write the jokes that are funny, because that was the biggest hurdle. That was the scariest part.
It's fair.
And that's when I decided I wanted to try it to expand my repertoire and see. I came to Vancouver and, you know, I went to a comedy show here, and I asked the guy at the door, I was like, how do I do what you do? And he was not particularly encouraging, you know, like he was just like, oh, you know, like he didn't really give me an answer. He just kind of like laughed it off. And I'm like, that hurts, because you don't know what my background is. Like, I'm confident that if I was educated in how to do this, I could do it well.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's what now, years later, taking classes has been for me.
That's sweet. That's good. So so you said you've done 3 open mics now. So now
no, I've done more than 3 open mics. I've done a bunch of open mics. I've done 3 like actual classes that end with a showcase.
Got you. Okay. So then what's coming up for those then in that regard?
Well, I just did a showcase like two weeks ago.
Nice.
And or last week? Was it last Wednesday? It was last Wednesday. We're doing this on Friday the 6th. It was Wednesday the 28th. I did my other showcase. The goal for me is to build, like, you know, the way you go is you build your tight 5, which I did in February, which got me that agent's card. And then, you know, you expand out to 20, and then you expand out to 40. And if you can do 40, you're a headliner, right? Like
Jesus.
that's so I did. I've done 3 of these, so I have 3 distinct 5-minute sets. I have other things I'm working on, so I'm pretty, you know, close to being a middle act, if not. But I'm emceeing some comedy in Calgary because I got a Bing Pot show. I've expanded into this new Bing Pot Trivia Royale show that I'm putting together.
That's it.
I did one in Calgary in the first week of August, and they're bringing me back on a Friday late night. So I don't know how many viewers, listeners do you have on this show these days?
It really, I mean, like, it depends on each show, but like actual subscribers, just under 700 on YouTube.
It's pretty good, bud.
And then, yeah, the listeners on Like audio side are a bit lower. So it really depends on the guest.
All right. Well, if you got anybody in Calgary, October 4th, Bing Pot Trivia Royale with Yuck Yucks. It's going to be awesome. And I'm emceeing the comedy all week there.
That's sick.
I'm
good gig.
really looking forward to that. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be emceeing the comedy on Friday and Saturday. It's 2 shows on Saturday, 1 show on Friday, and then Friday late night, I'm running my Trivia Royale.
That's sweet. Have you felt yourself improving on the comedy every show
Absolutely.
you've done? Yeah.
Well, okay. So
because that's tough. Because again, it's the audience at the same time as much as it's you.
yeah, I mean, you never want to blame the audience. Is one thing
True.
I've learned. Like, and I would say this for trivia too all the time. Like, remember, I do 4 trivia shows in a week, and it's the same show. I run the same show 4 different times, and I'm doing it for 4 different rooms and 4 different audiences, and some people respond differently. Is it the week? Like week to week, a lot of the times I have the same people, but their enthusiasm changes week to week. So all you do is win on consistency, is what I say. I win on consistency. So for me, what that means is I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part to put a strong effort forward. So you asked if I've improved showcase to showcase to showcase. Not linearly. My second showcase was better than my third. The one I did last week was the hardest one I've done. And it was just because the second one went so well. The second one was like far and away one of the best things I've ever done. I feel like I blacked out after it. Like it went that well because I was so nervous about it and I was stressing so hard. The first one I did was whatever because, like, long story short, I didn't know what to write about. You only get 5 minutes. 5 minutes is no time at all and also an eternity on stage. So it's
I was just going to say, to me, that would feel like forever.
But when I have all these things I can talk about, when I can talk about I was a child star or I have a crazy Jewish family or
True.
Like, pick a thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, I love hockey. Like I can do anything. So what did I want to do? And deciding what to do was the hardest part. So I settled on a bunch of self-deprecating Jewish stuff. And I wanted to talk about, I don't know, there's some jokes that were kicking around. I'd be like, yeah, you know, I can't do these right now. But like there were some Hitler jokes in there too, which was, that's for me. I think that's funny. I'm allowed to.
That's true. That's true. You are.
My favorite line is like, you tell people you want to make Hitler jokes, everybody goes quiet. I'm like, why don't you like Hitler jokes? You respect the guy too much? But it's give me that one. No, so I settled on all the self-deprecating Jewish stuff and how, like, these things happen to us. Maybe it's our fault. And I wrote that set and like decided and settled on that set and perfected that set on October 5th for a showcase that was on October 9th. And on October 7th, everything went down in the Middle East. And I was like, how do I do these jokes? And I said, screw it. I'm going to do them anyway, because this is how I grieve. And I did. And the audience was on side with that at the time.
I was just going to say, I feel like that was probably the right decision because I think people would have laughed harder. I think the laughs would have been better.
Well, it was like, listen, we had just gone through this terrible tragedy as a Jewish community. And it was like, I'm going to make these jokes because this is how my people grieve. I think my line was, Italians have I botched it. Italians have carbs. Jews have self-deprecating humor. This is what we do. So I did it, and that was fine. But I also knew in the back of my head, I'm not doing this set again for a while.
Fair.
Like that was
so known as the Jewish comedian that only makes Jewish jokes.
Well, there was that, but there was also like the timing of it all, and this war was kicking off, and it was before the retaliation got out of hand, and so it's like, whatever. But it's just we're gonna put those to the side, and that's fine. And then there's like another element too, where doing Jewish jokes in Vancouver is a lot harder than doing it in Toronto or Montreal, for example, because the Jewish community is not as strong here. So a lot of people don't have that intimate knowledge of what it's like to be around Jews.
Right.
So that was stuff I learned after the fact from other comedians who like gave me some advice. But the whole point was the first showcase gave me the confidence to just go to open mics and just do whatever and not care.
Right.
The second one, I worked my ass off to get this tight 5 done. And because it went so well, and I got the card from the agent, and I had a whole bunch of people in the audience, and they loved it. When I got to the third one, I was like, I think it's going to be not as easy, but I think it's going to be as successful as the second one. And then you're in your head over like, well, who am I bringing to this one? And is it going to be all the people that saw the last set? And what are
Right.
how are you going to top that? And in the end, none of that really matters. And it stopped being fun. This was like a 6-week class, and it was agonizing the entire time where I'm like, I don't know what to write. And I don't know what to say or how to say or who I'm even talking to. Coupling that with the fact that as I've gone to open mics and tried to work on new material, the open mic scene here is, I don't like it. I don't like it. I think there are things that are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And similar in a way that I started Bing Pot because I didn't want to be a guy reading questions into a microphone for trivia because I think that sucks. I wanted stuff that was a little bigger. I do kind of feel the same way about the comedy scene here, at least at the open mic amateur level. And this is the other thing is like everybody, nobody at the open mics knows or knew that I was, Edwin from Life with Derek and I'm a D-list Canadian celebrity. Like nobody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
They just think I'm some guy who's just getting into stand-up.
I think
They
that's
don't
an
know
advantage.
and I don't. Well, it isn't because I'd like people to know before I get up on stage that while I will acknowledge I'm brand new to stand-up and have a ton of things to learn, I have a broadcasting education, I have a writing education, I've been performing my entire life. I am not
new in entertainment. You're not new in entertainment.
I'm not a schmuck off the street.
Right.
So, but nobody cares. And again, I'm not the kind of guy to go in and say, hey, by the way, I'm Danny. I'm not a schmuck off the street.
Right.
I went in and said, hey, I'm Danny. I run a trivia company.
Yeah.
But people here, like I stopped calling Bing Pot trivia to a point because now people hear trivia and they think of all the things that I'm not because they think of what trivia is, not what I've made my company turn it into.
Right.
So now I just walk in and I'm like, I'm this guy that runs trivia. And they're just thinking of some jerk off on a mic in a bar somewhere. And I'm not the guy to be like, oh, by the way. So
fair.
This last set, I didn't invite a lot of people because I have this big following from Bing Pot where, I could reliably, if I tried hard, like I did with my second set, fill a room. Of Bing Pot people that want to see me do stand up because my audience is incredibly encouraging and my followers and my friends are great. But I didn't do that this time because I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. And as I found out, there were a lot of comedians in the audience that were around this, still at the open mic scene. And I said, screw it. I went, there's a great comedy club here in Vancouver. There's the Underground Comedy Club. And I got in preparation for the showcase onto their open mic. Friend hooked me up. He's like, I'll get you on. And I didn't do any new material. It's this wonderful club that's in the basement of a bar. And it feels like a bunker, concrete walls, like it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in there and said, you know what? I need to make this fun for me again. I'm going to go do my Hitler jokes. Because there's something about doing comedy in a bunker that just makes me want to. And
hey, that's good. That's good.
So I did it for me. And I was like, I'm just going to go up and fuck around for me.
Yeah.
And I did. And it was a lot of fun. And then leading into the showcase, it was like, okay, I'm going to go do it. And so this is how I got to the set where I was like, I'm just going to do 5 minutes where I'm going to tell people I'm an actor. I'm going to drop that I was on Live with Derek. And if anybody cares, great. If not, fine. And it's a weird thing because the joke that got the biggest laugh, these classes that I've been taking have been taught by an incredible comedian, Patrick Malia, who is God, he's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because he's like so quick, and that's the stuff you can't teach because that's the stuff you have to like. Yeah, it's like anything, right? Acting or comedy or whatever. It's just reps in a gym. So every time you're at an open mic, you're just getting your reps in. Anytime you're performing, you're getting your reps in. And he's just done so many reps. He's been at this forever that he's so fast and his brain just goes so fast. But the biggest laugh I got on stage is when I was explaining to people, listen, I'm D-list Canadian famous. Okay? A-list Canadian famous is Ryan Reynolds. B-list Canadian famous is like, what's her face? Colby Smulders from Smulders. What the hell is her name?
From How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah. Or like the Bare Naked Ladies. That's B-list Canada famous. C-list Canada famous is Derek from Life with Derek, and I'm right below. I'm on the D list, which is still more famous than Patrick Malia. And that was the joke that got the biggest set of laughs, right? But not so famous that I can get meaningful stage time at an open mic. So, like,
It's good.
you know, and that was a shot across the bat of the comics that were in the audience, because I get it. In my eye, in their eyes, I suck, and that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. But that's the weird existence I live in.
That's good.
So, well, and like, I'm trying to process what that is.
Right.
Like, that's just a difficult thing for me that nobody can empathize with.
Fair.
Right. So, okay. But that got the biggest laugh of the night. And that, I think, just adequately sums up my experience in comedy for the last year, is that.
Interesting. Okay.
I emceed an open mic because I asked to MC it. It's an open mic that I've been going to, for about a year. And I asked the guy if I could MC it, and I was so goddamn nervous. And I was like, I smoked a little pot before the show, which is something I rarely do.
Mhm.
But I was like just that nervous. And I'm like,
you needed to calm down. Fair.
Yeah. And I just go up, and like at the end of the day, it ended up being, kind of fun, but way more stressful than fun. And that was the Johnny Paul, the guy that runs that one, is like, hey man, just like make this thing fun for you. And then I went and I did the Hitler jokes in the basement, and then I came out and did and said, screw it. I don't care about what these comics think of me anymore. I don't. Yep. I'm not trying to like, I've got this thing cooking with Yuck Yucks because of Bing Pot, and it's just like the acting thing where Bing Pot is my thing.
Yep.
So acting, comedy, whatever, I don't need it in the same way.
That's good.
Because I have Bing Pot. I don't need this stuff. So just go do it for you.
I like that. I love that.
Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that must be a really good feeling too, because like 10 years ago, it's you needed it at that point.
Yeah, it for sure
was.
At
least more so than you do now.
No, for sure. My whole identity was tied into it, but not just like that. Like a year ago, when I was still kind of wishy-washy on Bing Pot, and I was like, I just want to be really good at stand-up comedy. I just want to be really, like, I need to be good at something to prove to myself that I'm good at something. Like that's kind of how lost I was last year.
Yeah, and that is interesting that it just so happened that I had you on at that time, because like not like I would have known any different, right?
Yeah,
but still, and the fact that you're battling that in your own mind, right?
For longer than just last year. Like the whole pandemic upended me. I mean, we talked about it in last year's show, where like I kind of had to figure some things out, and where am I going to go and what am I going to do? And I got really upended.
Yeah.
During the panda, and
I feel like that a lot of people could probably relate to.
1000%. I'm not saying I had it worse than anybody else.
No, not at all. But no, absolutely.
Like my boat got rocked, and my sense of self got rocked, and then you add turning 30 into the mix, and my siblings are all doing really well at what they do, and
that'd fuck with anybody, all of that, especially combined.
Right. So finally, like I said, when we were talking last year, I was where I was pre-pandemic with Bing Pot. Like it took forever to get there and me to feel okay about it. And now I'm further ahead.
That's
so awesome. Yeah, man, but that's God, awesome. Did that take a toll?
Oh God. Yeah. I do not doubt it, man. That would fuck with anybody. Jesus. One more act or Live with Derek acting question before I get into hockey with you. Well, actually kind of two. So last year we talked about the show, Vacation with Derek, and then that movie that came back, Live with Luca. And at the time, I think you had told me that they were talking about making that into a TV show. Do you know if that's still a thing?
I knew this was going to come up, so I was curious. I haven't been able to find anything.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if there's an appetite for it. I don't know how the movie was received. I know it's got a higher score on IMDb than Vacation with Derek, but I also wouldn't put much stock into that because as much as you love the IMDb,
I'm obsessed.
Nobody.
A lot of people can customize that stuff, right?
You're asking the wrong guy.
I think it's like not exactly like Wikipedia, but I feel like it's messed with more than people would think.
I don't know. It doesn't care. Here, let me see if there's a comparable on just for funsies while we're here. Like I'm just gonna fire up Rotten Tomatoes super quick, and
I would never think. Curious. Let me check Life with Luca and Vacation with Derek on Rotten Tomatoes.
Does it not have a tomato meter score? So the show doesn't even have a tomato meter score.
So I feel like if
Just a
the show
travesty.
didn't, the movies may not.
Maybe not. Let's see. Let's find out. Just validate. Okay, so Vacation Vacation with Derek has a 45% rating on Rotten Tomatoes on the popcorn meter.
Oh,
And Life
okay.
with Luca has a nothing. So they're not even talking about it. So you tell me which is worse.
I think that just kind of answers your question right there, right?
Yeah, my attitude has kind of changed with Life with Luca because I thought it was fine. And a year ago it was like, if it goes to series, listen, I wanted to go to series, and don't get me wrong, I still do want to reprise the role given the opportunity, but I'm not holding.
Especially now that you came back to acting.
Yeah, I think now it's all set up even better to do it. And it's my opinion that if they're gonna do the show, they should probably bring back the funny one.
I mean, yes, that's true.
Like, guys,
that's a good point.
What are you doing?
Yes.
What are you doing?
When I had Jordy on a couple months after I had you on.
Yeah, and I listened back to that too, actually.
I appreciate it. It seemed like she was in the same boat as you. As like, what the hell? Why did we not get a call?
No, I'm not sewering anybody because it's not what it was about. I said this last time. I would have done it differently. I question your decision making.
It seemed like Jordy was saying the same thing. Well, and then not that this got I got so many views or so many people listen. Did you hear anything after this or from Jordy? Did anyone say anything about it to you when you and I talked about you about not shitting on it, but just I didn't think so again because it probably didn't get very many views, but just did the people that should have known your opinion and your feelings towards it, did they know? Did you give that to them?
At least one person close to the production knows my thoughts.
Right.
And I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, fair. No,
there's nothing else to say. It's just listen. If they're still working on it, great. Bring back the funny one.
Seriously, I love that. That's so simple. That's the best way to put it.
What do you do?
No, that's fair. You're 100% right. Okay, I want to go to hockey, and before I bring up the Leafs, last time I had you on, and I cannot remember.
I regret nothing.
It was the Babcock stuff.
I regret nothing.
You gotta refresh my memory because you listened to this yesterday. Yeah. Was it the cell phone stuff out yet?
No. Okay. I think the cell phone stuff came out right
after I posted the episode.
And so I said something along the lines of watch out for Babcock in Columbus, and then he was fired a week later. I regret nothing.
The training camp?
I regret nothing.
Really? Okay.
I regret nothing.
All right, that's all I need to know.
Listen, and this is me. This is my opinion and only my opinion. If somebody asked me to turn over my phone and just be like, "Can I look through your phone?" I would be fine with it.
There was one player that he did he stood them up, or he did something weird, or they only hung out for 5 minutes at a lunch. He did something weird. It's they drove an hour plus, and then it was 5 minutes, and he left. It was something. There was another part of that. It was really odd.
Dude. We said this last year too. There's so much that goes on behind closed doors that we'll never know.
Oh God, yeah.
So man, the guy. I'll reiterate what I said last year because it all still stands. The guy had a profound impact on me when I was going through one of the most difficult stretches of my life and was turning to hockey for escape and a little bit of, I guess, to help me reframe. When I was 25 and looking for some kind of guidance, I looked to the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who at the time was one of the most decorated head coaches of his era.
And he showed he showed us a team that was actually not bad for the first time in a long time. Yep.
And he said there were just certain pieces of his rhetoric that stuck with me and helped me get through a really difficult time in my life. Mm-hmm. And based on that alone, I'm a Mike Babcock apologist, and you don't have to like me for it.
Okay, fair. Only thing I'll say is there's a reason he's probably not going to get another job. I think that was his second chance, and he might have flubbed it. I'm pretty sure at this point. If you can't see Columbus, you're probably done.
Whatever, man.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Leafs. So, this one we'll just go through quick. Another fucking first round exit, but I wanted to talk about the Tavares thing, because you and I talked about this. It was like a few weeks or a month or
Yeah.
something. We talked about it beforehand that I thought stripping Tavares of the C made sense. I know it was kind of weird because he still has a year on his contract, so it was kind of odd the way they did it. But I want to get your thoughts on here about it. I know
I gotta ask you a question first. You have this whole show where the whole concept is you revisit key figures from your childhood, and your audience is tuning in because they're into the nostalgia for, Life with Derek or Big Comfy Couch or Pick a Show.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody care about the Leafs that listens to this show?
That's a good question. I don't know. And I don't care. I don't care. I'm talking with Danny Meggs on my show about whatever I want to talk about, and we're doing that.
So
that's a good question, though.
Thanks. I'm gonna actually ask you one more question too before we talk about the captaincy.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being extremely optimistic, 1 being extremely pessimistic, where do you fall on your level of optimism for the Leafs this season?
I'm gonna be boring. I'm gonna go 3 because Berube is a wild card for me.
Okay.
Keeping Marner was no go, and but I think
I'm at a solid 4 and 4.5, and I am probably the only person I know that is very bullish on the Leafs this year. And the captaincy is part of a greater issue, which, when we talked about it last year, we were talking about, okay, well, Kyle Dubas left, and clearly there's a culture issue in the room. And I think Keefe was part of the culture issue.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect intended for Sheldon Keefe, but, I thought he should have been fired in November. And it's props to Brad Treliving for not firing him, because if you come in a management role and start firing your bullets right away all over the room, like, that's not a good way to come into an organization. So I think Treliving is a great general manager and knows that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we look at the culture issue, John Tavares feels like he plays with a lot of pressure on him. John Tavares, the way he left New York, put a lot of pressure on the Toronto situation for him. And regardless of how cool, calm, and collected he can be, right, culture comes from the top down. So if that's your guy, all the pressure is going to get magnified, I think. Yeah. I was adamant that Willie Nylander should be the captain, but only because I wasn't convinced Austin Matthews was going to be a Leaf for life, and I was convinced Willie would be a Leaf for life. Now that there's no Arizona team, I don't see Austin Matthews going anywhere else. Okay, This all makes sense. So the team needs to be chill. But also everyone's like, the team's the exact same. The core's the exact same. The defense is different entirely. Way different. And if they can stay healthy, great. If not, this could be a disaster. But there's also guys in the pipeline, so you don't know.
We also need Wall to, like, in that back end, you need Wall to be healthy as well.
Yeah, sure. Or Stallers. Like, that's like, but you got different guys. And then you're right. Berube, I don't think is a wild card. I think Berube's got the necessary. I just think he's totally different from Keefe.
I'm so excited to see what his lineup will be, and how certain guys play under him. Domi, I feel like, will excel so much under him. Revo should just, hopefully, I think Berube lets him play a little more and do his thing a little more. I feel like it was a lot of Keefe or even higher Shannon saying, no, don't do this, don't do this.
Well, I don't think it was Shannon. I think it was.
Really? I feel like he has a lot more say than people think. Like, he's way too involved sometimes.
I don't think he is
really
at that level. No, because Shanahan's job is to oversee everything.
Right.
Like, there's probably crap related to, like, game presentation that goes through Shanahan. So he's not obsessed with the guys on the ice. Obviously, he cares.
Do you remember the oh my God, what was the documentary, the Amazon one? I'm blanking on what it's called. Wow, I don't. Not now or never.
Who cares? Because it's
something like that. Whatever it was. Yeah. When we traded for Foligno, Dubas had to go ask his permission.
Well, yeah, but that's different.
But you're gonna ask permission every single time?
Yes.
Really? Then why do you have a GM?
To handle the minutia of the day-to-day hockey life.
I don't know.
But what I think is happening here is with Berube coming in, Berube is a coach that is much more like Babcock than Sheldon Keefe.
Yes.
And forget Babcock the human for a second, but I liked his coaching style.
Yep.
He would say things like, the team's got to hum like a machine, 4 lines with identity, each with identity. And that's something that Sheldon Keefe didn't do. Sheldon Keefe was like a jazz musician. It was just improvise, do this, right? Like, and I think that with a revamped back end, with 2 goalies that, health aside, are good at what they do,
this duo is better than this time last year.
1,000%. You have the pieces to succeed.
Yep.
You have the pieces to succeed. And the guys now know that under a third coach, they had things under Babcock that I'm sure, looking back, they'd be like, Babcock did this better than Keefe.
Yep.
There are things that Keefe did better than Babcock. Now they got a guy who can hopefully balance everything and be a unifying voice. And the one thing that everybody keeps saying about Craig Berube is that he will get players on the same page and give everybody a sense of purpose.
Yep.
And that is what the team has been missing. And also, John Tavares is in a contract year. He has his kids now. Like, he's not like learning how to be a dad.
Yeah.
At the same time as trying to take his team to the Stanley Cup championship.
True.
Mitch Marner is in a contract year, not just playing for his next payday, but playing to stay a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs because that's what he wants.
Yeah.
That's to hear him talk. That's what he wants. So he's playing for a big contract somewhere and him hoping it's in Toronto. And the only way to do that is to show up, be a professional. Listen, like, I'm sure, Quinn, that you know what goes on behind the scenes of an NHL franchise when you're on the road.
Oh, God, yeah.
The parties, the everythings, the whatevers, the stuff that, is worth being an NHL. That's why you're an NHL player in your early 20s, is to live that life.
Yes, yeah.
It's the stuff that takes away from hockey. And all the coaches ever want is for you to just show up to the rink and be determined to win the hockey game and have no distractions, right? That's what the coaching staff wants. The guys are older. They're hurt. They're wounded. They're scarred. And now they know. So, boys, get it together. Do the thing. Have a coach that is there to keep you consistent, because what does this team always lack? Consistency.
Always.
Coach Keefe didn't know how to do it.
No.
Babcock couldn't do it with those young kids being as young as they were.
Yep. What I'm so excited about Berube is that he's not a guy to walk back comments. When I think it was last season or season before when Keefe made a comment about Marner, the next day he walked it back.
We talked about that last year, but that was a Dubas problem.
True.
And so Treliving has all been about accountability. Berube is going to come in here and be about accountability. How can you not be bullish on this Leafs team with the amount of talent they have? You're like, oh my God, they're missing one left winger. They'll figure it out.
If they even are, because at the same time you have a guy like Cowan knocking out the door, Minton knocking out the door, and then there's a couple veterans we have.
And look, man, you'll get this because you're 27, and I was certainly feeling this when I was 25, 6, 7. When I had younger guys around me, I was better.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I'm a supervisor, and like a lot of guys on my team are younger than me.
Yeah,
right.
And you elevate yourself for the sake of them to be a good role model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in theory, all of these things should be connecting this year. And when you look at Edmonton going cup or bust and coming a goal away, right?
Fuck.
Like,
if only, man. Like, I just couldn't imagine having a team to root for that does that. Right now, I can't imagine.
You don't think that's what's about to happen with the Leafs? Like the writing is here.
I know. It does make sense.
We don't want to get hurt again. I get it. But this is the same thing every year, Quinn. This is the life cycle of a Leafs fan. Okay? We get absolutely gutted in May or April.
Or April, yeah.
We get usually April. We get absolutely gutted. We get hurt. We say fire everybody. And then they make a couple of tweaks. And
the dog days of August is what gets me the most.
I hate it.
That's what I'm because I'm waiting so much. I'm like, you know what? I'm just excited for hockey now.
We're talking the same language, buddy.
Yes, dude. It's August that, like, I'm going back because I'm a big Steve Dangle guy and Spin Chicklets. I
Mhm.
go back and listen to old episodes from last fall to
Yeah.
get me amped up for this one because they're all on breaks.
Yep.
Right. So yes, it's 100%. It's a cycle of, it's not only a Leafs fan, it is a hockey fan. You get hurt, you say fuck this, you have a few months off. It's October, you're fired up again.
So I'm feeling very strong about the Leafs, and I'm feeling very confident in my ability to assess this situation because I'm saying things that I haven't heard anybody say, which is crazy to me because I'm not close to the game and I'm not an analyst. I'm just being an armchair guy, but I'm not being an armchair guy like I'm not an idiot. I clip that for the next time I do something stupid. I'm not an idiot. I kind of understand a lot more than people give me credit for. And I think all of the reasons that I just broke down for you are enough of an argument to say they're going to have a good year if they stay healthy.
I don't remember if I did this last year, but I'll do it now. What is your prediction playoffs for the
Not
league?
doing it.
No?
Not doing
Why?
it.
Did I do it last year?
I don't think so.
I don't think I did.
No, because there's too many. I don't like doing it because there's too many variables.
There
Like,
is.
what if I were to tell you that, okay, listen, fine. Nobody gets hurt. They make it out of the second round.
Oh,
Like, that's as far as I'll go.
okay.
Nobody gets hurt. They make it out of the second round. But listen, like 3 weeks in, God forbid, Austin Matthews tears his MCL. He's out for this season, or he breaks his wrist or something stupid. Like, you can't. So I'm not making any dumb predictions. Also, I feel good about Ottawa.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like the Sens, but I liked the Sens last year too.
Are they knocking at the door for you?
They were knocking at the door for me last year,
and they've got better. They got Allmark.
They've got Allmark. And
did you see who they signed to a PTO yesterday?
Nikolai
Kulemin.
Yeah,
weird.
I mean, nobody else was giving him a try.
I know he hasn't played in the NHL since 17-18. I remember him on the Leafs with him and Grabowski and MacArthur when they were just so awful, and that was like the highlight to me.
What do you mean awful? That was the line that went to
that team,
Game 7 against Boston.
Yeah, exactly. And then what they do after that, and what they do before that.
We don't need to talk.
They should have never been.
I don't remember.
They should have never been in that those playoffs in 2013.
That's
I
disagree.
The lockout helped them get there. If there was no lockout, they wouldn't have been
great.
There.
Yeah.
Their Boston was too good. They went to the final. You know what I mean? There's one. Oh, last thing, actually, like final thing. I have a confession to make. I lied last year during the show.
What's up?
When you brought up, or I brought one of them, about the whole Derek and Casey and people thinking like, oh, they like each other. I was off on the other side. I always thought that too. But when you said last year, when you said like, looks like there's sexual like tension and people are saying that, I was saying, oh, that's stupid. I do believe it too.
Bro, they were trolling.
I had to admit it.
Like, I went and read a review of Life with Luca last night to prep for this, and they're like, the natural conclusion is for Casey and Derek to end up together. And I'm like, please don't. Like, please don't.
It's the way people edit TikToks or something, because sometimes it's the one when he goes, oh, you're like the best brother. He goes,
I talked about this last year.
That's the one.
Revisit it. Go back and watch episode 1 if you want the insight on that.
That's the one where I think it's like, yeah.
Quinn, people like you are proof that people just jerk off and watch porn for the plot.
I had to admit it because last year I had to lie because I barely knew you. So whatever you were going to say for that specific point, I was going to agree. And you're like, oh, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, I think so too.
Okay, I got a question for you. This is my question is, you've been doing this podcast for a year. I forgot that I was episode 1. You've been doing this podcast for a year. How have you grown? And what is the biggest takeaway you have from a year of podcasting?
There is so much more to learn about the people I used to either listen to, watch on TV, or watch on YouTube than anyone has any idea. That's what I've learned. There is so much more than like Danny Maggs was Edwin Venturi.
You needed to do a podcast to learn that?
Yes.
People are complicated?
Yes. Because I just feel like as a person and just like, just personally, there's so much more to learn, and like the behind the scenes of some things is unbelievable. And people's life, like things they had to go through to get that show I watched, that movie I watched.
Now I'm going to push deeper. I want to know what you learned as a podcaster. as a broadcaster, if you will, like in terms of how you interview, how you prepare, what you're, how have you gotten better at
I feel
making this
like
show?
my attention to details gotten a lot better. That like I look for the weirdest things I can because I know that whoever I'm interviewing will be like, oh shit, like you did your research.
Mm.
So I'll look for like weird things that I know people won't have talked about before. And all depending on who they are, I'll look back at their like other interviews and make sure I'm not asking the same things. And I didn't do that at the beginning with you.
Mhm.
And it took me a few episodes, maybe at least 10 to 15 episodes in to start doing that because I didn't want to be like every other interview that they've ever done. So I try to like ask weird shit, I guess is a way to say it. I don't know. My attention to detail is a lot better
Mm.
in the last year.
One of the things that I've seen you post about has been the importance of perseverance in something like this.
So, yes.
Yeah, and this is, like I don't roll my eyes, but I certainly raise an eyebrow when people tell me that they're going to start a podcast and they're going to do a show, because I've done enough of these types of things to know that consistency is hard, right? And yeah, you posted about that. What was the biggest hurdle for you in the first year?
Consistency.
But I mean, tangibly, what?
Like, I think I got too comfortable. Let's say I would have done 2 or 3, and
Mhm.
then I banked, or maybe let's say 3 or 4, I bank them. I get to about to post the third one. I have one left. I scramble. It was the procrastination was
Mhm.
my problem.
Yeah.
Lazy. It was. I got too lazy and too comfortable with thinking, hey, I got a few episodes in. Perfect. I'm gonna start posting them. I don't.
Yeah, you got to have a
Another
bigger
one.
bank, right? How are you going to replenish the tank?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people do that. A lot of people are like, "Yeah, I can do 3 episodes." It was Andrew Walker was a sportscaster on the Fan for a while.
Back when I used to do sports, I had a sports podcast. I interviewed
Yeah.
him. He's a unreal dude.
He had an interview. No, it wasn't an interview. He was just doing an episode of his show while I was in radio school, and he said this thing to JD Bunkus, who is now currently the guy on the Fan, and because JD was just producing for him at the time, and Andrew Walker said a thing. He's like, "Listen, anybody can do a radio show. You can come in here and do a radio show and knock it out of the park once. But to do it time and time again, to come in and make this your day and prepare for it, and then it gets boring, and then you have to power through, and then some days it gets less boring and it's fun, and that has to be your life. Like, that's hard."
Especially when especially if it's something you're doing completely on your own. And fuck, dude, you know about this. Like, I come up with the questions. I book the guests. I edit this. I record it. I post them all. Everything like that. Right. Again, I've said this before, and I said it in that post I think you're talking about. I'm recording this in my parents' basement.
And you got a life that you're taking care of at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You got a
and I have a
fiance.
full-time job that I'm
Yeah.
working towards. I'm getting married next year. It's like I'm still doing shit on the side. Like this thing right here, this is a fake wall my 2 friends from work put up for me. It's all insulation, this entire basement.
Yep.
2 panels, and they got this made for me.
Yeah. You're
Right?
not supposed to tell anybody that, right? You're
Ah,
supposed to be
whatever.
like, "I'm in a professional studio."
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's very professional. I think you could already tell it's not that professional.
Well,
But
you got to fake it till you make it, don't you?
yeah. So it's like, no, that's trying to create your own thing. Again, you know this better than anybody, is so difficult.
Yeah.
And you can't be lazy about it.
Yeah, but you also need to give yourself grace. You're human, and you only have so much bandwidth, and you need to recharge. And
Fair.
and right. But what's inspiring about you is, and I'll be honest, by the way. Sometimes I read these posts of yours that you make about how hard things are, and I'm like, Quinn, just shut up. Like,
Dude,
well,
comment that, please.
No, because I don't want it out there in the ether for people without context, right? Like,
why is Edwin from Life with Eric telling Quinn to shut up?
But no, it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously stuff's hard, right? But I don't want to hear about how hard it is for you.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to show me the house that you built and say, these were the hard things about building this house, and these were the fun things about building this house.
But I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
I
like
that.
I don't go out to a trivia show and tell people before the show that, guys, have had a really hard week and this is super hard, and maybe after the show when you get a big moment and everyone's laughing and having a great time, you're like, listen, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, this was hard. But you know, you.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
I'm not trying to give you life.
No,
advice. That's
dude,
not the point.
100%. No, I appreciate the honesty. I love that's really good feedback.
But at the same time as I'm telling you to, shut up about it, I clearly appreciate the fact that you have posted it, so I can be like, yeah, you're experiencing the highs and lows.
Yeah, I'm just doing it in a more public way than most.
Yeah, but look,
Dude,
if it's
I'm a
working for
whore
you,
for attention.
yeah, well, that's why you've got a microphone and the
I mean,
camera.
hey, aren't we all
Right?
technically?
That's
Anyone I'm interviewing, it definitely is. Right? All right. Well,
yeah.
dude, Danny, I appreciate it, brother. You're the best. And
This was a long one, huh?
yeah, hour 15. I don't remember how long the last one was.
I don't know. Actually, maybe it was close. Who knows?
Maybe.
And I think less hockey. I think last time was like 35 minutes of hockey talk.
Yeah, it's about close. I think about 25.
The problem is we got all this juicy stuff at the end about you, but people are going to tune out once we start talking about the Leafs again.
I'll just
And
edit it
so-
a certain way so we mix it up.
Yeah, just be like, if you want Leafs talk, we moved it to the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And take that clip right there, and then just put it at the front.
At the very beginning.
Leafs talk, we waited till the end, and then boom, this is
yeah. Unreal. Well, dude, yeah, thank you again, brother. I really do appreciate
Happy
you,
to do
man.
it.
I love that you're able to jump on at like a pretty short notice.
Yeah,
Scheduling for this was a little odd, so I do appreciate it. But
I got you, buddy.
Yeah, man, you're the best, and we'll have to get you on again sometime.
We'll do it in another year, right?
Exactly. All right, brother. I'll talk to you later, Danny.
Yeah, man. Take her easy.
Yeah.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.